On December 16th, 1993, a 52-year-old man from Talkeetna, Alaska, vanished without a trace. 2 days later, his torn backpack was found, containing a lost tape that captured his final, terrifying moments. What did he see deep within the cave, and why was he never seen again? Join me on this Lost Tapes episode. Jack Wurman, a father of two, lost his mother on December 14th, 1983. They were incredibly close and cherished every moment they spent together. The Northern Lights, a remarkable sight to behold, was something Jack and his mother enjoyed viewing every winter. Not once did they miss them. Since his mother's death, Jack has honored his mother every year by revisiting their viewing spot on the anniversary of her passing. On December 14th, 1993, he packed his supplies and made his way to Denali National Park, where he would hike the same trail he had walked every year for the past decade. The trail wasn't particularly special, just a short hike up the side of the Denali Mountain, no more than 100 feet high. Jack and his mother knew the path well, so well in fact that they could walk it in the middle of a blizzard. Both of them were experienced hikers, and so when Jack didn't come home on December 14th, his wife, Jill, she didn't think too much about it. There had been times when the weather was too rough and Jack had to camp out in a cave for the night, but he'd always return home in the morning. However, when December 16th came around and Jack still hadn't returned home, Jill knew something was wrong. My name is Jack Wurman. My friends call me Worm Man, just to poke fun at me, I guess. But anyway, I'm making this tape because I was out at Denali National Park. I come out here every year to see the Northern Lights and, well, I saw them, but an avalanche trapped me in a cave. I don't know what triggered the avalanche, but that doesn't matter at this point. I brought 3 days worth of supplies just in case I became stranded, so I'll be fine so long as I can find a way out of the cave. But one thing I wanted to address is that there's something in this cave with me. I don't mean bats or anything like that, no. I mean, well, I heard a grunt or a groan or something when I ran in here, so forgive me, but I think it's appropriate to tell this story from the beginning. I hiked up the old trail and sat out on a small ledge, maybe 100 feet up. The sky was open and free of clouds. Stars peppered the velvet horizon, and the crisp Arctic air nipped at my skin. I was bundled up in a Columbia suit and snow pants. Once I sat down and took a deep breath, I removed my thermos from my pack and smelled the peppermint chamomile tea. The aroma reminds me of Mom. She brewed this stuff every Christmas. The Northern Lights were just as beautiful now as they were then, and as the ribbons of light danced across the canvas of the sky, I was reminded of her, my mother. She was 76 when she passed on. Nothing dramatic, it was just simply her time. My stepdad called me, told me she had moved on in her sleep, painless. He said it was painless. When the green and blue sheets of light swirled and played, I thought about her warmth, her smile, and love. I had done my best to bring that same sense of honor, integrity, and peace to my family. In a sort of weird way, as a parent, I feel I had failed in some regards, but the kids, they remind me that I didn't. My kids have grown up just fine. One is a doctor and the other is a lawyer. My wife tells me that I'm too hard on myself, but I remind myself that it's okay to care, to love, to make mistakes. Either way, I shrugged off my thoughts and sat in the moment, beneath the splendor of a beautiful ballet of light that I feel had been orchestrated only for me. I know that as I look out there, my mom is looking back at me, and I hope she's proud. A crackle echoed through the mountains, and far in the distance, I saw the beginning of an avalanche. I paid no attention to it until I heard the crackle behind me. I looked down the cliffside. Jagged gray rocks, which pierced the snow, stared back at me. Snow, fine as dust, pushed against my cheek as the crackle became louder. The ledge in which I sat rumbled beneath me as I turned around. Beyond the vertical horizon, past the mountain's cliff face above me, barreled a wall of snow, ice, and rock. This moment, which seemed to stand still, was the very moment I felt Grimm's skeletal finger brush against the nape of my neck. My skin crawled as each of my hairs stood on end. My heart beat in my chest, and I could hear it. I could feel it in my throat. I swallowed the lump of anxiety and turned away from the imminent avalanche consuming the entire cliffside of the mountain above me. Once Jack was reported missing on December 18th, a rescue team consisting of 22 people searched Denali National Park. High and low, helicopter and snowmobile, no matter where they searched and no matter what they used, Jack could not be found. The evidence of an avalanche had been discovered, but what puzzled the Talkeetna detectives is that Jack's backpack was in good condition. One would expect an avalanche to rip or completely destroy something as small and flimsy as his backpack, but no. It was found at the base of Denali Mountain, and it was dry, as though someone had placed it there, or as someone else might say, it was planted there. I turned away from the wall of white and backtracked as best as I could. I'm a fit guy and I know how to book it down a mountain, but this avalanche, there's no way I was going to even try outrunning it. I made my way down the cliffside, finding solace every time a flat path appeared, but then I saw it. A giant hole in the side of the cliff face. I ran into it, and just as I entered, the roar of the avalanche penetrated my ears. Rocks pelted the cave entrance, while others rolled onward down the mountain, and then snow. What I saw reminded me of a waterfall, but this was different. The snow was falling with such force that small bushes and trees were swept away. In addition, the snow itself had mingled with dirt and pebbles. Glass. That's what it felt like, as though I was getting walloped by tiny shards of glass. I ran down the side of the mountain and entered a cave. Once there, I removed a flare from my pack and lit it. The mouth of the cave was vast, about 15 feet high and maybe 20 feet wide. Gray stones, untouched by nature, shook because of the force of the avalanche. The sound of a boulder splitting far in the distance startled me, and I crouched down and covered my head. This cave, though it's a refuge from the avalanche, could collapse. As the roar of the avalanche encompassed me and the sprawling cave grew in size, I closed my eyes. This is too much, too many things. Snow began to pile into the cave, and now I have no other choice but to move deeper into it. I feel like a defenseless rabbit forced down the throat of a snake. illuminating the mouth of the cave with my flashlight. I felt the push of snow against me. The small sliver of moonlight closed as a wall of snow built up, and then silence. Absolute silence. I had been snowed into this cave, but I could still feel the avalanche. I could feel the rubble and hear the slight rocking of boulders and stones. Once the avalanche ceased and the boulders stopped moving and silence was all I heard, I returned to the wall of snow. Stones and boulders had fallen into the cave entrance, leaving little room for escape. I know that no one can hear me, but I screamed anyway. In front of me is a small opening, just large enough to stick my arm through. I reached through the hole and felt the cold touch of the stones and boulders. Ice. That is how it feels against my skin. Stones made of ice. I screamed in vain, hoping that somehow someone could hear me, and then I heard it. A groan. A deep groan from deep within the cave. I stood still and listened. Surely I would hear it again, but I didn't. I have 3 days worth of supplies on me. 3 days. December 20th. The Northern Frontier, a local newspaper based in Talkeetna, Alaska, printed the first batch of testimonials regarding Jack's missing persons case. In it, they published a melancholic letter from his wife. It read, "Jack, honey, we hope to God that you come home. We miss you. Angel's wedding is in 3 weeks, and she needs her father to walk her down that aisle. Jack, please, please, if you can somehow hear this, whether it be by the grace of God or maybe you're in a town over or listening on your mobile radio, I don't know, or maybe you're making your way back. Know that we all love you, cherish you, and have you in our prayers. Yours and only yours, Jill. Jack, please come home." Another article read, "Missing man's lost tape exposes something hideous hiding in Denali National Park. Jack Wurman, husband and father, was reported missing on December 16th. It is believed that Mr. Wurman may have been swept away by an avalanche. However, his lost tape suggests otherwise. 3 days after publishing said letters and an editorial, the Northern Frontier retracted all articles written about Jack's disappearance and the avalanche, which may have led to his possible demise. And since then, the Northern Frontier has been erased from history. How is it that a once well-established, lucrative newspaper goes bankrupt 3 months after printing news articles hinting at a conspiracy?" Okay. I have 3 days of supplies. Now that I think about it, 3 days in here, in this cave. The air is cold and it's quiet now. I listened for that groan, but heard nothing. Wind, well, I heard blowing between the stones. I pushed them, but they wouldn't move. What can I do right now? No one knows where I am, and I imagine the entrance of this cave looks just like any other snowy cliff face. How would they even see me? I stood up and withdrew a small kerosene lantern. I have fuel for the thing, so that's good, but the glass cracked as I frantically scurried into this cave. I add fuel to the lantern and light it. The flame illuminates everything in a 10-foot radius around me. The shadows beyond the horizon of my light gazed into me. I felt something turn in my stomach as my hands tingled. Terror, unrivaled horror, sweat, Though it's freezing here, still beaded across my forehead, I exhaled and the ghost of my breath dissipated before my eyes. I blinked hard, desperate to wake up from this nightmare. I realized then that I cannot get out of this cave from this location. Maybe there's an exit somewhere else. The icy rock on which I stood stretched into the black void, guarded by what appeared to be a curtain of shadow. As this cavern grew in immensity and Arctic gales nipped at my neck, agoraphobia strangled my senses. In the vastness of the open space before me, opening wide and tall like a dragon preparing to roar, I felt every hair on my body raise, and my throat clenched tight and my face sink. I heard it. Something beyond the veil of shadows, from the well of blackness, from beyond the terrors of my own imagination. I heard it. The groan, a deep groan, an undeniable groan that something else is here with me, deep in this cave, basking in what I cannot see, concealed by only darkness. I stammered as my head rocked upon my shoulders. Tight, tight. I could feel my muscles tighten and then freeze. Once more the groan manifested from the stomach of this cave, and now it was louder. I think it knows that I am here. As I stood still, so still that I myself wondered if I was made of stone, I heard the subtle pat of a single foot slide across the ground. And then, as the soft gales of wind ceased, and all that remained was silence, I heard it. Something that reminded me of sticks and the movement of leaves or brush. A single pinprick of orange pierced the black void I stood in front of, and from it bloomed into existence a fire. It was then I saw the outline of a foot, a large foot, veiny, hairy, and long yellow toenails. The fire roared into life, announcing its birth with a bright orange flame that illuminated the leg this foot was attached to. Thin, very thin muscles revealed to me that what I was looking at was the calf muscle of this creature's leg, but that is all I could see. The body which this leg was attached to retreated beyond the glow of the campfire, and I realized, and my heart sank once I did, that the thing was so vast in scale that its foot was about the size of the campfire it had lit. I studied the campfire. For me, it appeared to make up an adequate bonfire. A pile of logs, to me anyway, were stacked about chest high. Therefore, I could only deduce that the top of this giant's foot was chest high, and its knee perhaps 15 feet high. From the darkness fell a mountain goat. It craned its head up to gaze at the creature, which I assumed threw it to the ground. As I stood and watched, two immense hands emerged from the shadows. One hand firmly grabbed the mountain goat by its stomach, and the other grabbed its left hind leg. My heart raced, because no matter how hard I searched, I could not see the creature. All I saw were two hands attached to forearms, which receded into the shadows. Suddenly, the silence was broken by the shrill screams of the goat. I heard it. The goat turned its head upward and stared at what I could not. It frightfully looked into the eyes of its hunter and bellowed. As I sat, the goat's hide I closed my eyes because I did not want to see the rest. But no matter how hard I pressed against my own ears, I heard its cries, its screams. I listened for what felt like hours, but was likely only minutes, until the goat cried no more. I opened my eyes, and there it lay. Rested my attention and gripped my soul. A single yellow pale eye with a brown iris fell upon me. I stood in the shadows beyond the reach of the flickering light, so I doubt the creature saw me, but its eye remained fixed on me, and suddenly the man or monster leaned forward. A thin, gaunt face emerged from the shadows and revealed itself. A giant. I am in the company of a giant. I flinched away from the cold wall, and I realized that its eyes followed me. The giant knows I'm here. December 22nd, 1993. A torn piece of clothing was discovered 2 miles west from Denali National Park, and DNA analysis confirmed that it belonged to Jack Wurman. The forensic investigator noted that the article of clothing found did not contain any trace amounts of blood, therefore suggesting that Jack's pants had been ripped due to other circumstances, or that they were torn prior to his excursion. Mary Wurman wrote a letter of complaint with regard to the way her husband's case was being handled and published it on her blog. It read, "Since the Northern Frontier isn't taking any other articles about my husband, I'm going to publish this here. My husband has never gone out with anything less than ideal equipment. Come on, he knows he's camping out in the middle of the Alaskan winter, and he knows how to protect himself. Look, something is going on. Something ain't right. Detectives won't call me back, reporters ain't calling, and I don't know what to do with myself. All I want is my husband to come back home, or for the people who should be helping to help find his body, so that way we can have a proper funeral. But I'm getting stonewalled by everyone who's supposed to be helping me. Jack, honey, I know you're out there one way or another, and I'm sorry that things are going this way. I hope and I know that you got out of that cave. Otherwise, we wouldn't have found pieces of your pants. But if you read this or hear this or whatever, please just come home. Honey, please just come home." Hands, large enough to lift a truck, reached forward and pressed against the stone floor. Yellow nails, split in age, reflected the soft flickering light, and his arms were wiry, thin, and bony. As the giant lurched forward, he took a deep breath. A rib cage beneath a sheet of skin expanded and receded with each breath, and then it stopped. Yet its movement was slow and concise. It inched closer to me from the shadows, and as my feet felt heavy as lead and I held my arms tight against my chest, I exhaled. The ghost of my breath lingered as I awoke to myself. The cave is vast, cold, and foreboding, and here I am now. I snapped out of the hypnotic trance and noticed the full form of the giant. Had I paid attention sooner, I would have noticed he had set the goat's leg down. Had I known, I would have realized he had nearly closed the distance between us in a single reach. I dropped down as his hand swooped over my head. He clasped the icy air as I crawled along the cave's edge, slinking low and hiding behind stones and boulders. My efforts to remain concealed were in vain, because as soon as I slunk low, his elongated bony fingers wrapped around whatever boulder I so chose and plucked it from the ground. I crawled beneath a rocky overhang and at one point lost my sense of direction. And so now, here I stand, confused, with my back pressed against the wall. I had managed to skirt along the shadows to his other side, but it's hard to tell at this point. He has moved and turned so many times that I have lost all sense of direction again. I do not know if the exit is to my left or right, nor do I know what is before or behind me. I pressed my hand against the icy stone wall and walked forward, following the bumpy path before me with my feet. I dare not light a single flare, not so long as the giant remains alert and I evade its attention. With sudden yet quiet footsteps, I cross behind the giant. Its spine nearly protrudes from its skin, and the giant reminds me of an emaciated man whose existence has been in the gutter of whatever street he chose to live. Streaks of dirt split by valleys of sweat painted a landscape across the tapestry of his back, and his odor was foul. Dead fish, rot, and decay trespassed into my nose, and I could taste it. I lurched as it wafted over me. I gagged, and then he turned around because he heard me. I fumbled and reached for something I could use and found a small, jagged rock. Today, I accept that I may perish for one of two reasons. I will either succumb to the elements or this giant. Regardless, I ready the jagged rock because now I have an idea. Far off in the distance, I see a few small ribbons of light. I assume that is where I came in from and where I hope to exit. If this giant can so easily lift a boulder, can it throw one too? The giant reached for me, and I stood still with the jagged rock in my hand. I slipped it up to my coat and waited. Its fingers moved to my left and past me, while its thumb was on my right. His knuckles popped as the fingers closed, and his grip tightened around me. With a single firm squeeze, he arrested me in his hand. I knew there wasn't any fighting back. I couldn't. I stared into his pale yellow eyes as they shifted. He looked at my hair, my coat, but once our eyes met, he did not look away. As he moved me closer to him, I rested my hands on the edge of his fingers. His nostrils flared as he smelled me. His eyes lifted once he realized, I think he did anyway, that I was a smaller version of him. While I stared into him, he stared into me. His mouth fell open, and I realized from his mouth is the source of the odor of decay. I slid the jagged rock out of my coat as he closed the distance between us. 10 feet, 8, 4, and then 2 feet between me and him. Red valleys cut through the yellow of his eyes. I gazed at them and proceeded to focus on the giant's pupil. As we looked into each other, I swung the Here and now, I sailed through the air and crashed into the stone floor. It covered its eye as it bellowed in agony. As it wailed, I ran for the ribbons of light and threw what rocks I could to capture its attention. The giant, now furious and enraged, lifted a boulder and hurled it at me. I ducked out of the way and dodged the boulder. It crashed into the wall, setting me free. Sunlight washed into the cave, and it revealed a pale-skinned giant and sharp yellow teeth gushed between the giant's fingers as he covered it. I turned away from the hideous giant and ran as he extended his arm for me. I ran down the side of the mountain, only to see 3 helicopters flying around the base of it and a team of perhaps 14 people on snowmobiles. Perhaps a rescue team. That doesn't matter. I found a decent path I could use to escape and followed it. I noticed these men. They are in uniform, a military uniform. With that, I will leave this tape in a secure spot in my pack where those men aren't likely to find it. I am relieved to see them, but my instincts are telling me that they, too, should be feared. Jack's body has not been recovered. The official statement about the circumstances around Jack's disappearance are as follows. We give our condolences to the Wurman family. After an exhaustive search, which lasted 72 hours, we have concluded that Jack may have succumbed to the elemental factors in Denali National Park. A thorough investigation had been conducted, and we hereby declare beyond a reasonable doubt that Jack Wurman is deceased and his remains have yet to be discovered. The only conclusive evidence to support our decision is that we have found a torn fragment of his pants and his backpack, which contained 0 supplies. We have since returned his belongings to his wife. Jill's response was this: "They lie. Jack hid the lost tape in a flat by the seam. They did something to him. Let's piece it together. Jack finds a giant, the military is there, they obviously captured him and planted the torn pants and backpack so they could say he's dead. That giant? It's a biological experiment. I mean, come on, just think about it. It is. I'm willing to bet you that they have some kind of secret facility in those mountains and they don't want Jack talking about it." Hey, it's me, Michael Bearre. Thanks for watching my video. If you want more lost tapes, there's some right there. And there's longer stories right down there. You can subscribe by clicking that button. Thanks, and see you in the next one.